Okay, good afternoon, dear participants. Thank you again for joining us today. Again, apologies for the invited scenes earlier. So my name is Andrew. I'm the Youth Engagement Officer for the Center. And the Sunway Center for Planetary Health welcomes you to the first town hall of the year. And it is my pleasure to be with you here today in the company of such brilliant minds and experts. Now, as the moderator of the town hall, I would like to begin with an overview of our session today before moving forward. The theme for our session today is pioneering a youth-centric planetary health education. Now, as we are aware, the health of the planet and the health of its inhabitants are deeply interconnected, and human activities such as pollution, deforestation, and climate change have significant impacts on both. Now, we are extremely fortunate to have a panel of esteemed speakers across a range of disciplines. I would like to take a moment to introduce them. Now, in the interest of time, I'll only be able to touch upon their impressive experience and careers ever so briefly. Now, let us meet our panelists. First up, we are joined by Professor Dr. Elil Ranganathan, a medical doctor by training. He has extensive leadership experience and expertise in public health, strategic planning and governance, evaluation and organizational learning, collaborating with governments, UN agencies, NGOs, and academic institutions. He has held positions in international health with a spectrum of strategic and managerial responsibilities over the past 30 years, including over 24 years in leadership and global roles in WHO. In his last assignment was as the Director General Representative for Evaluation and Organizational Learning. He is currently a Professor of Public Health and Policy at Sunway University, Malaysia. Hi, Professor Elil. Thank you so much for being with us today. We look forward to join for your session later on. Moving on, we are also joined by Dr. Hana Arif, who is currently the Education Officer of our center. She is a distinguished graduate from the University of Malaya. Dr. Hana has an extensive background in curriculum development and education, having previously worked on constructing the curriculum for the University of Malaya medical program and developing big data educational modules for the Selangor Human Resource Development Center. Her experience and expertise have given her a unique perspective on the importance of education, both within and beyond the confines of academic spaces. She is currently heading the General Studies, or the MPU program, titled the Community Service for Planetary Health at Sunway University. Later on in her session, she will introduce her work and what she has done. Dr. Hana, thank you for being with us today and joining us for this session. Next, moving on, it's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Samuel Isaiah, who is the Program Director of Pemimpin GSL, which stands for Global School Leaders. He has 12 years of experience in the education industry, predominantly as a teacher to students from the Orang Asli community, a teacher trainer, keynote speaker, and researcher. Samuel also co-founded a teacher network called Edufication that aimed to expand the boundaries of education and ignite critical discourse in Malaysia. Lastly, I would like to introduce Mr. Stephen Isaac, who teaches at SMK Methodist Central. He has been teaching biology and science for the past 12 years. He has extensive knowledge in youth engagement and empowerment, both as a speaker and a coordinator. Stephen is also part of the Edufluencer program, which was created by the Education Ministry's Education Performance and Delivery Unit, or better known as PADU, to empower teachers and recognize their role in making Malaysia a nation that leads to the Malaysian Education Blueprint 2013 to 2025 a success. Not to forget, we have all of you young leaders here today, which we are grateful to have. We truly value your opinions and insights on the topic at hand. So please let us keep this discussion as interactive as possible. Now, to get the ball rolling, I would like to invite Prof. Elil to begin his session on our first topic, the need for planetary health education. Prof. Elil, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew, and thanks a lot for inviting me to speak to you today. I think I've definitely increased the average age of this group that is attending this meeting, but it's fine. So maybe I think what I'll try and do is I'll try and approach this by looking at 3 questions and then one particular comment. My first question would be, what is planetary health? Obviously, there are many ways of describing it, but I'll try and address it in a very simple manner. Planetary health is a broad field which is focusing on the health of the planet and the important connections between human health, the environment, and nature. As you know, our health is deeply linked to the health of the Earth's ecosystems, and our actions, even though we are one of many, many species, have profound impacts on the planet. In fact, as a species, we are the ones who have the most impact on the planet. Planetary health covers many issues, including some of the things that you have heard of: climate change, air and water pollution, loss of biodiversity, deforestation, the spread of diseases. It's about understanding how these environmental factors affect human health and develop strategies for reducing these negative impacts. Ultimately, the goal of planetary health is to promote sustainable development that protects both the health of the people and the health of the planet. It is a crucial area for action, and it's one that should help us move more towards a more sustainable and equitable future. My second question would be, why do young people need to think about and contribute to planetary health? I mean, as young people, you are our future, and you need to make sure that your future is bright too, and not spoiled by current negative influences and actions that are on the, that take place on the planet and the environment. Therefore, getting young people engaged is super important, very important. You are the future leaders, policymakers, and decision makers, and you will be responsible for your fellow human beings, and also for those of us who are now getting very old. And you will also be responsible for the future health of your people and the planet. But you can already start contributing and be engaged starting now. The other question one may ask is, how are young people already engaging in critical social and political issues of our times? In this regard, you know better than us how you have become engaged in supporting a number of important issues. Some examples of youth engagement in critical matters is mainly through peer influence and awareness raising, and those include social media campaigns, specific youth-led initiatives, community outreach activities, where you collaborate with other organizations and where you become part of a larger movement. Finally, my last kind of major comment is to say that ultimately, one of the most important ways of engaging young people to support planetary health is going to be through education. When we provide young people education and knowledge of planetary health from a very young age, it will help them understand the importance of planetary health. They understand the importance of sustainability and to understand their role in protecting the planet and safeguarding our health. Planetary health topics can also be integrated into school and university curriculum. There could be standalone courses, workshops, or seminars. Other means include learning linked to specific projects or through community service activities. And you will hear more about this during today's session. Promoting planetary health education and teaching students the importance of planetary health and providing them the necessary knowledge, skills, and tools will help contribute to the wider efforts to create a more sustainable, healthier future for everyone. I'm very happy that there are a few great colleagues joining me today, and they bring excellent experience and expertise in this area, and their thoughts and ideas will be enriching. Furthermore, you yourself, when you come in at the question and answer session, could also tell us how you think we should be doing these things. We really hope that we are able to get you motivated and are able to nudge you towards action. But ultimately, the responsibility lies with you and your vision for the future. Thank you very much, Andrew. I think, I can pass it on to Hannah. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Elul, for outlining the concept of planetary health and addressing the important role that education can play in inculcating planetary health knowledge from a very young age. Now, to move on, I'd like to pass the floor to Dr. Hannah Arif to share about the Centre's role in planetary health education. Now, since the Centre's inception in August 2021, the Sunway Center for Planetary Health has placed an utmost importance in two core work streams, predominantly knowledge and learning and engagement and influencing. The Center's Think and Do ethos emphasizes generating, translating, and communicating evidence-based research to promote policy and human behavioral change. Dr. Hannah, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I think we can put up the slides. Or should I share mine? Yeah, you can. Hold on. Just have to hold that. Okay, so I'll be talking about SCPH's role in promoting planetary health education. Okay, so where exactly do we start? So what is the commitment to by SCPH to knowledge and learning? So there's actually two main aims. So the first one is to enhance knowledge and understanding of planetary health, and so to amplify the voices of planetary health advocates and scientists across sectors. Okay. So I'll just briefly touch on planetary health the planetary health education framework. So this framework actually cuts across 5 educational domains, which you can actually see in the figure. So there's the Anthropocene and health, there's movement building and systems change, systems thinking and complexity, equity and social justice. And the middle of it all is actually that interconnection within nature. So from this graphic, you can actually see that there is a shift away from a siloed approach to education. So any educational programs needs to be intentionally designed to be transdisciplinary, solutions-oriented, and transformative. But I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that because there is a lot of discussion going on, and then there's a talk about educational systems and a planetary health praxis in educational systems. So I think that's a bit too much in the context of this session. So let's just move on to one of our programs that we actually have running now, which is the MPU or General Studies subject on the community service for planetary health. So the aims of this particular course is actually to introduce the concept of planetary health. And next is to develop the basic knowledge and skills that will enable students to investigate planetary health problems and to develop community-based projects that will actually help solve them. And then the third one is to create awareness of civic responsibility and the contributions that they can actually make to advance planetary health at the community level. So from these 3 aims, we come up with 3 course learning outcomes. So upon successful completion of this particular course, students should be able to understand the concept of planetary health, its core principles and key issues, especially in relation to local communities and contexts, and then to learn how to diagnose a planetary health problem and design a solution for it at the level of the community. And it's also to appreciate one's civic responsibility and potential contribution to advancing planetary health at the community level in collaboration with others. Okay, so this course was designed in a hybrid format. So there's an asynchronous and a synchronous component. So the asynchronous component is actually a material that the students can access by themselves. So these are mostly online, and these are in the form of recorded lectures, reading materials, MCQs, and also there are some reflection forms that the students are supposed to share with their peers online. And then there's also a synchronous component, which at the moment involves weekly tutorials with an assigned tutor. And then there's also student-initiated team meetings, and then the actual conduct of the community project itself. Okay, so the course structure, right now the course is a 2-credit course, so that translates into a 7-week format. So the first 3 weeks are actually the teaching weeks. So that is where most of our content is provided to the students. So the first topic is on introduction to planetary health and what exactly planetary health means. And then the second one is on how the students are actually supposed to diagnose the planetary health problems in their communities. And by the third week, they should have the skills to actually design solutions and have the skills involved in managing a project by themselves. And the next 4 weeks is actual commencements of the project. So if you can see on the pictures on the side, the first one is actually a snapshot of the e-learn module. So this is how it looks online at the moment. And the second picture is actually the current group of students in one of the tutorials. So this is when they actually have the sharing sessions, and then we have a tutor to actually guide them in how to design and manage our project. So this is when the actual discussions are made. Okay. So we also have a video of our pilot project, which happened in 2022. So I think Maisara is going to play this video. No. Okay, so we'll be providing a link to the actual video, which is on YouTube or in the chat, so we can access it by themselves. Okay, so you can just try and view the video by yourselves. Okay, I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hannah, for an in-depth sharing of the center's focus and commitment to planetary health education. Dear participants, we're going to go for a 5-minute break right now. And when we come back, we will hear from Mr. Stephen and Mr. Samuel on their journey of education and planetary health and the work that they have done. So we will see you in 5 minutes. Thank you. See you shortly. System currently addresses. Oops, sorry, maybe I can start back. Yeah, welcome back, participants. Sorry about that. Now that we have an idea of how planetary health education is incorporated at a tertiary level, let us now dive into how the education system currently addresses planetary health concepts and discourse in the public school arena. I now invite Mr. Stephen to share his viewpoint on this matter.
Can you hear me, yeah, Andrew?
Yeah, Ken.
All right.
Loud and clear.
All right. Thanks, Andrew, and also to the Sunway Center for, number one, having this session, and number two, for inviting me and also the rest of the other panelists. I think it's a very good session for us to have so that we can share. I mean, from me, in a public school, how do I do things that is related to the planetary health education? For an introduction, I'm actually a science and also biology teacher. I've been teaching for the past 12 years. So one of the things that I've been doing with my kids is that when I teach science or biology, I think maybe this was not in the early of my teaching, but as time goes by, I felt that science is very much related to the planet, and it's my duty to make sure that my kids learn beyond that. So when I was starting this planetary health education, there was these 3 goals that I set in my heart, even in my mind. Why am I doing this with my kids? The next slide, maybe. All right, okay. Number 1 is to always encourage my kids to go beyond the content of the textbook and relate their classroom learning into real life situations. Now, this is very important because I feel most of the time teachers in the classroom, they're really stuck with these 2 things. Number 1, I'm going there just to teach. And number 2, I need to finish my syllabus. And number 3 is to make sure I prepare my kids for exams and all that. But beyond that, what do my kids really get? So for me, it's to learn beyond that, is to make sure that they can apply things in their real life. You know, we're talking about, for example, you talk about climate change, but what can my students do about it once they leave school? So that has always been the goal that I set in my heart, even as I'm teaching them. And, you know, when we're preparing lessons, so this is one of the objective, the outcomes that I put to make sure that I don't go away from that. Right. Number 2 is to motivate my kids to be creative and responsible learners with an appreciation and understanding of climate change. I think this is very important because what we are seeing now surrounding us, it is very much related to what my kids are learning in the classroom. So it's important for them that they will be able to become the change makers that we're always talking about. You know, most of the time we keep saying that the future belongs to them, but I always tell them that the future belongs now. You know, you don't really have to wait for the time when people say, hey, one day you're going to do this. I say, you're going to do it now. So be that change that you always want to see outside there. All right. And number three, as global citizens, I want my kids to be connected to technology, which allows them to network with like-minded people and instigate positive global initiatives. You see, I think most of the time what happens in a classroom is that the kids, they meet friends, they meet people that is within their same mentality. They have this passion, but they can't go further because they are stuck in a small group. So I always try my best to make sure that they're connected not only to themselves in the same culture and vicinity, but it's for them to go out to meet kids which is like-minded like them. They know that they can make a change, meaning that whatever they learn here, it doesn't get stuck there. They can meet organizations, NGO, they can meet people outside. They have that they can share the ideas and they can make it into a reality. So these are three things that I have when it comes to planetary health. Whenever I'm teaching my kids or whatever we do in the classroom or outside of the classroom, this is the intent. So I always tell myself that stick to this so that you don't go into the how do you say this, into the mindset that you got to finish syllabus. Because as teachers, for me, I personally believe is that it's not about the subject, it's not about the syllabus. You got to go into the classroom, you got to make an impact, and you got to make sure when the kids come out from school, they got to make an impact to the world outside. And I'm just going to share three simple lessons. How do I do this and how did I did this with my students in the classroom? Okay, like the first one, okay, you can just show the picture actually. All right, okay. So we were learning about plastics. Okay, there was a topic in science that we learned about plastics, but that's about it. How does plastic comes about and what is the usage of plastic, and that's about it. But what I had in mind is that we're talking about how do we reduce the usage of plastics, you know, and yeah, I forgot to mention that one of the things that I integrate is that sustainable development goals into my lessons. And this lesson was based on life below water. So we know that plastic is one of the main things that actually, you know, my kids know that this is one of the main things that causes pollution, but it's just not good enough for them to learn about plastic. It's what can we do to reduce plastic? So this particular lesson was that they made posters to promote awareness about the usage of plastic. And to go beyond that, okay, this is just because I don't want it to become slide centered. So what they did beyond this is that we have presentation, we go to classes, we talk to them about why you shouldn't be using plastics. And a very simple thing was about plastic straw. And I remember that one of the impact that we had through this activity was, or this lesson was that the kids that I taught, they stopped using plastics in school. You know, they will buy this Vitagen and they buy this carbonated drink, but instead of using a straw, they'll just drink it as it is if they don't have a straw. So I say, how come? They say, because didn't we not learn this in our classroom? You see, that's what I meant, for them to learn and for them to apply. So this is just one of the lessons that I did. And I multiply this lesson, sorry, not the word multiply is wrong. I repeat this lesson yearly, but with different activities. And one of the other things that we did was that how to make our own straws, which is edible, and also how to do a campaign in the school compound so that everyone else get the same knowledge. All right, the next slide. Okay, the other lesson that I carried out, this was based on sustainable cities and communities, sorry. So we were learning about green technology. This was in the new syllabus, but what was interesting is that this is a topic that we can really, I really taught the kids how we can really save the planets with what we are learning in the classroom. We learn about renewable energy, but the question I always ask them is that how are we applying to use renewable energy outside of our classroom? So we came up with this plan. If we are to come up with our own city, what would it be? The things that we will be implementing or creating that with the concept of renewable energy. So we came up with a model, sorry, that can be used in that particular city. So the concept is that it has to be renewable energy. All right, and the other lesson was that the next slide. Okay, the other lesson was that this is what it's applicable both in biology and science. We're learning about animal habitats and all that. So one of the things that I did was I saw this video about the importance of bees, and I felt it was so fascinating that I had to teach my kids about it. So going beyond learning about organisms and habitats and all that, let's talk about bees. And at the end of the lesson, we realized that, that without bees, practically the whole planet is going to go extinct in a certain amount of time. So they came up with this infographic to put everything that they found out, and make it into infographic where they can share it in their class, and they can even put it up in their walls, their Instagrams and all that. So these are just examples of lesson how planetary education can be applied in the classroom. But I used to get this kind of questions, like a very simple question about this lesson. I don't see anything about bees in your regarding bees in any of the lesson outcomes. So because it's not in the syllabus. So that's the entire point of it. It is not to be dependent on the syllabus, but for us to go outside and explore beyond the syllabus. That has always been the key. So I tell even my teachers, don't be afraid to explore, because at the end of the day, we want our kids to be able to think by themselves, that when they go out, the things that we teach them, we teach them to save the planet, but are we really teaching them in the classroom how to save the planet? Or are we really more pressurized to make sure we just cover the syllabus? So these are things that I do, and I share with my teachers to make sure that they can do that with the classroom. And I like the slide, I think it was at the beginning of our session, that planetary education is interdisciplinary, meaning we can actually use so many other subjects which is not within our scope, but it can always be integrated in order for us to teach. Because like I said, we are not really here to teach a subject. We're actually preparing our kids to face the future that we have always been talking about. And what better place is that if it's not our classroom? So and before I just roll it up, I just want to say there could be students here, there could be teachers, educators here. For students, I always like to encourage you that when you're stepping into your classroom, when you're leaving your classroom, remember the things that you learn. You got to make sure you will be able to apply it outside and make a change in the world. And remember, when people say that you are the future, tell yourself the future is now. It is always now. It is not about making a change when the time comes. The time is always now. And for teachers, I would always say that don't be too dependent on syllabus and making sure that I just want to finish my syllabus. There are a lot of things that we can teach our kids to become better citizens, for them to become human beings. That's about it, for them to be able to apply outside of their classrooms. And I've seen kids who have left the school, who've come back 2-3 years after they left school, and they're doing courses related to the environment. And I got kids who have come back even after 10 years, and they're involved with WHO. I'm so proud to look at these kids, because we have done something, and the product, it's not really expressed in their exams or even in their public examination. It is expressed to years to come. And I think that's the greatest gift that any teacher could have, that our kids to make an impact in the world. So with that, I would like to end my presentation, and I would like to thank again Andrew and for Sunway Center for inviting me.
Thank you, Stephen, for your sharing. I really enjoyed, hearing about how you not only follow the syllabus or even go beyond, beyond the syllabus, go outside of the box to teach your students. And of course, I wish I had teachers like that when we were growing up, not just focusing on what's in the syllabus, focusing on your exams, but also learning things where you can relate into your own personal lives. And it is truly encouraging to see your students, being so aware of their role in protecting the planet and safeguarding our own health. Thank you so much for including these things into your lesson plans. We appreciate that. Now, dear participants, we're now going to move on to our last speaker for the day, which is Mr. Samuel Isaiah, to address the topic, a holistic and transformative approach to incorporating planetary health into the education system. Now, Samuel, we've seen, from the perspective of Stephen, who is a teacher, and how he has incorporated planetary health, environmental health into his teachings. Now, as someone who has done a lot of work in training teachers, how do you see these things taking place in your plans or in your course in training and developing teachers?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And I think starting off this session with great transition from Dr. Ellil giving us like an overarching view of what is planetary health, and Dr. Hannah, and then Stephen showing us how important it is to have like efficient, proficient implementers within the education ecosystem. And I think in a lot of systemic changes or policy changes, I think individuals like Dr. Elil can testify and say that at the end of the day, it depends on how it's being implemented on the ground. If we are looking to, we are focusing on our Malaysian education blueprint, for example, it has been said widely that it's a good document, it's rooted in the SDGs at all levels, blah, 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 but how is it being translated into school? Andrew, I was also quite curious because when you gave me this topic, a holistic and transformative approach in incorporating planetary health into the education system, I was like, oh, okay, this is a lot. And I hope I have the answer, but I'd like to tell you I don't. And I think if we are talking about having a solution, if we are looking at systemic changes in Malaysia, I don't think there is one solution. There are multiple solutions, and it's our role to come together, different stakeholders, universities like Sunway, schools like Stephen, NGOs like what I represent right now, to come together and see how we can contribute this together. But I think like a lot of systemic changes, I think what we need to do, first of all, if we are talking about holistic and transformative approach to incorporate planetary health into the education system, I think we need to identify the gaps within the system itself. And I think one of the key areas in Malaysia, of course, is the lack of political will and leadership. I think if we are really serious of wanting to include planetary health into the education system, everything needs to be aligned. What Stephen is doing in the classroom, the assessment need to be aligned to what Stephen is doing in the classroom. If not, how is that whole process meaningful? Stephen is seeing that there's a bigger picture. Stephen is saying that we need to prepare students for the future, for a world that is deteriorating in certain aspects as well. But the education system is not evaluating that, and then there's a mismatch of expectation. So I think we need to be more conscious. I think the system itself needs to be more purposeful, more intentional in incorporating the SDGs and in incorporating planetary health. And I also think another area, I think before we go to the questions, Andrew, I also was reflecting on this. I was thinking, if I were to like really want to do this, what is the resistance that I would face? And I think this is something that we need to expect as well. When it comes to education, I think some resistance from important stakeholders like teachers and parents. Stephen and probably any other teachers in the room can probably testify to this. When the Ministry of Education introduced school-based assessment, all right, there was a mismatch of expectation. So parents expected something else entirely, schools is expecting something else entirely, state education and district education departments, Ministry of Education is having different expectations. So when we don't have our expectations aligned, we'll have resistance. And resistance from teachers is like, okay, now I have to shift my thinking. I have to shift my focus from being exam, academic oriented, syllabus oriented, towards something that is a bit different. So yeah, when I was reflecting on this topic, I think these are the few things that I think came to my head. I hope perhaps in future engagement, we'll love to have the opportunity to learn from the rest of you. So yeah, so that's a brief kind of thing about the whole topic at hand.
Thank you, Samuel, for your sharing. Again, for me, it's so amazing to see Stephen and you, working, side by side, trying to make all these things come true, and learning outside of the classroom. And when you look at the challenges, I mean, okay, if you were to ask you what are some of the challenges you think that we have in implementing or teaching planetary health in Malaysian schools, just at the top of your head. What are some of the biggest challenges?
But before that, Andrew, can I just go to question number one? I think this is something that we can learn as well. So, and when we are speaking of engaging communities and stakeholders to promote planetary health, I think one of the most important things is to build trust in whoever that we are working with. I think that is a crucial element. I think Stephen is perhaps a success story whereby he built the trust with his students and his students' family, so they understand it. But how are we building trust? I think that should be at the center of a lot of things. I also feel that engaging with communities and different stakeholders right now, it's a bit different. We are having a town hall on Zoom, but right now people are using social media to a different extent altogether. I think in the recent elections, we had TikTok emerging not just as a medium for entertainment, but for precise information that actually could sway voters left or right. So I think we need to be engaging within different types of engagement strategies. Currently, from working with the work that I do with Pemimpin GSL, we work with school leaders, and we also work with 30 school leaders in the state of Perak, who are school leaders of orang asli communities. Interestingly, Prof. Lil and everybody else, usually when we speak to our funders, we prepare lengthy reports, right? We have like a baseline, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But what we realized that stakeholders love videos, they love testimonials, they love stories. So recently we recorded one individual who shared how her mindset shifted. So she was a school principal for 25 years in a public school. And when she was sent to an indigenous school, she did not know what to do. She had a fixed mindset towards what it meant to educate a child, but throughout our program, in 6 months through our program, she had a mindset change. So I think to communicate these ideals, sometimes we need to think a bit creatively. I think what Stephen also did, but that posters and all, that's all communication strategy. How are we communicating these ideals to different types of stakeholders? But back to your question, Andrew, about the challenges. I think I was once a teacher, and I think there's a lack of autonomy. When I first started off with doing transdisciplinary learning, experiential learning, getting kids to learn outdoors, combining different factors, different types of learning within the classroom as well, there was a lot of resistance. And in a top-down prescriptive system like Malaysia, I think it can be very demotivating for teachers to want to try to do what Stephen is doing. So the success rate is probably not as high. It would require individuals to go against the status quo, the PPDs as in the state and district education departments are expecting something else, and then teachers are like, no, this is important. So it requires grit, it requires vigor, but that shouldn't happen for every teacher. We need to ensure that our system allows each teacher who is trained, who is provided with continuous professional development, to be able to exercise their skills and autonomy within the classroom. A second challenge that I would like to point out is, I think, although schools are an important place for us to introduce planetary education and all these things, I think sometimes it's also important to recognize that schools can't solve every societal issue on their own. They should not be working on their own, especially complex societal issues that requires coordinated efforts from policymakers, educators, community leaders, and stakeholders from very, very sectors. Schools are not immune from societal issues, and they face a lot of challenges, right? You've got challenges in schools like social and economic inequalities, you've got discrimination, you've got social emotional issues, and then suddenly there's like planetary health, global citizenship, everything is just a lot, it's just much. So back to my first point, I think we have teachers who are capable to do this in schools and in classrooms in Malaysia, as shown by Stephen earlier on. But what we need is political will and change that is from the curriculum, change that aligns the expectations among everyone. And also, I believe that lastly, we need to recognize that although schools play an important role, we all need to work together and not in silos. So yeah, and I think figuring out how to not work in silos is also a challenge that we're all trying to figure out together. So more conversations like this also. So I think, yeah, that's all from me, Andrew.
Thank you, Samuel, for your passionate sharing. I hope this also gives us an opportunity to work together in the future to sort of figure out the challenges that you have addressed. And again, hopefully working together, not only teachers among teachers, but also with other stakeholders. We can sort of come to a solution that is feasible, one that is that can be done and doesn't burden teachers also as well.
Solutions, not solution. I think if you just focus on having one solution, I think that's why we get it wrong, right? There are multiple solutions. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, thank you again for your sharing. Again, dear speakers, Thank you so much for your time today. It's amazing to see, like Samuel, like how you explained earlier, we had a whole introduction of planetary health, and then we looked at what's being done at the tertiary level and even at schools. And I'd like to use this time to thank all of our speakers today for their time and their expertise. Now, dear participants, before we move on to the Q&A session, I would like to invite the Executive Director of Sunway Center for Planetary Health to share her views, especially on the upcoming summit, the Planetary Health Annual Meeting that is taking place in 2024. Tan Sri Jamila, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I think I've just been blown away. I know so much about Stephen and Samuel's work, big admirers. So to see that you're actually doing things in the classroom is just phenomenal. I mean, really, thank you so much for sharing. One of the things that we talk about is that we need an education revolution. How we teach kids, what do we teach them? So I think you guys are really, blazing the way forward, and I'm learning so much already just listening from you. So as you know, the planetary health movement is really quite young, but we think it is extremely important because we are facing an existential crisis in the world today. And we are feeling it every day, especially children. I think they've gone through 2 years being stuck behind, when they have a computer, an iPad, they're lucky, but for many, they have been left behind with the pandemic. And now, they're also seeing, even if they're not experiencing the terrible impact of climate change. So I think, we've really got to rethink this. I would love to continue working with you guys, how we can advocate to the government, the political will that's required to actually shift things, right? Now, next year, the planetary health movement has a summit every 1.5 years or so, and next year will be the 6th summit or the annual meeting. And traditionally it's held in Harvard or Edinburgh, in the global north. And there was one virtual one, if you like, in the global south in Sao Paulo during the pandemic itself. So we're very, very, very happy to announce that next year, between 16th to 19th April, we will be hosting the next Planetary Health Summit. And in it, we will be addressing what we've discussed, an education revolution, the need for us to really look at bringing the evidence we have. We all know the evidence is very clear, whether it's climate change or pandemics or pollution and all the other challenges we're facing today, and also mental health issues that young people face. But we want to now turn it on its head and say, okay, we know that, how do we now confront reality and get action on the ground? So this will be open to the public, and I really, really hope that we can find a way to showcase your work as well, whether and we will definitely reach out to all of you to participate and share your experiences in some way or other. So just to share that, we're very excited. It's the first time it's coming to Asia. So I think we have an ambition, as Asia is such a vulnerable region in terms of climate change, disease outbreaks, and overcrowding, massive urbanization, and all the problems that come with it, and also a real issue of equity, where some people have access to whatever they need, but some people don't. And I think it's become more and more stark after the pandemic. So just to share that with you, and please reach out to us as well, if you need more information. It will be more, we will probably share much more on social media in the months to come. So over back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Tan Sri, for giving us an update about the summit. So dear participants, now the time is yours to ask your questions to our panelists. So does anyone have any questions that you would like to bring up to the discussion? Any questions from the floor? Hello?
I see a question in the chat box from Pravin, right?
Yes, let's see.
Or comment rather.
Okay, so let me read out the comment from Praveen. So Praveen has said, a broader understanding of planetary education also should include human relationship with one another, just like how Sam mentioned, we shouldn't work in silos. But planetary education also includes interrogation of power dynamics. As you speak about saving environment, we should also critically examine the powers that corrupt the environment. But surely we are unable to do that, as the power that corrupts are the ones ruling the hegemony. All right, so who would like to answer this? Sam? Samuel? On this question?
Sorry. Yeah, I think Praveen has got a point. Thanks for putting me on the spot, by the way.
No, because he mentioned your name, so.
Yeah. You know, so sorry, I had to go out earlier. So the question was about, I think he mentioned about what did he say specifically? Sorry. Yeah, because I had to
basically
go
looking at power dynamics. Again, I think like what you said earlier, teachers having autonomy, you know, and you know, like again, how do we come out from that?
Because this is I think in my opinion, humble opinion, I think this is a status quo thing as well. As much as there's many people like Sambi who wants to save the environment, to some people that's just not beneficial for them. And I think what Praveen is probably attempting to say, that we need to encourage students to examine these factors too, to ensure that, you know, we're not just learning how to save the environment, but we also need to figure out how to stop it from being green in the first place. And who are these players behind it? I think that's what he's saying. Perhaps somebody else would like to chip in. Yeah.
You know, if I may, it's also about the political will, right? I think it was mentioned earlier as well. At the end of the day, without political will, it's very hard to move the agenda. But I truly believe society has transformed. And even if you don't have that political will, people power, you know, and the power of social media and communication will shift the needle. At the end of the day, I think our political masters realize that if there is noise on the ground, and a demand from the people, they will change their tune. I think we've seen this of late as well. The fact that we now have a climate change ministry is very much driven by many young people who have been very unhappy with the fact that, you know, things are quite disjointed and that we are facing the impact of climate change. So don't underestimate the power of young people. And this is why, you know, at the center, we truly believe engaging with young people is crucial. You know, it is the fundamental key for us to move the needle. If you wait for political will to happen, it won't happen in our lifetime. You have to create those opportunities, just like what Stephen and Samuel are doing. You know, you create the opportunities and then wait for the groundswell and keep pushing and get like-minded people around as well. So thanks. That's a great question, by the way.
Let me just add, Andrew, if I may.
Yes, definitely, Prof.
You know, I think, you know, adding on to what everybody has been saying, I think it's now becoming quite obvious that young people play a very, very critical role. Yeah. And the UN, for example, is taking that quite seriously and establishing special fora to have youth inputs into policy making and so on. And I think we all agreed during our conversation that social media and all these new tools that young people have are really, you know, they go viral very quickly. And as Jamila has just said, young people are beginning to define the world. And I think if we can help them, you know, provide, you know, they need to make informed decisions. And I think what we are trying to do is about making those informed decisions and not just them being influenced by a certain subset of information that they get. Yeah, thank you.
And
thank you, Prof. Ellen. Stephen, would you like to add your thoughts here?
Yeah, I just want to add on. I mean, I think a few things can more like what Praveen was saying earlier. I think one of the things that he said that planetary education should also include human relationship with one another. I think many of the things that I've achieved with my student is all about relationship. You see, teachers look at it as it's a different syllabus altogether, it's a different thing, but it's actually not. It is about how you do it in the classroom with the subject that you are entrusted to. But you can't do that if you have no relationship with your students. So number one is that they need to trust you. They will, and only when you gain their trust, they know that whatever that you are educating them, it's for their best. And this is one of the themes that I've always had, because I teach the upper secondary, is that for them to always look beyond what is being taught in the school. You see, schools are, I'm a bit critical as well. Schools are like, this is great and this is what you're supposed to do. But I prefer this, that you got to be more than that. And you can only achieve that, number one, if you have a relationship with your students. And you create that trust, they believe what you're teaching and educating them, and whatever that you teach them will make sense to them, and they will be the impact that you want to see. That's number one. And number two, I saw this question about what are the elements of planetary health education and how are they linked to sustainable development goals. So if you just ask this, whether is this related to any of the syllabus or whether any of the DSKPs in science itself, if you're looking at secondary, you just really got to look and find that it is not necessarily in there. But like I said earlier, it's not about finding what's in the syllabus, it's about expanding the syllabus. So when you expand the syllabus, you'll find out that like I make it very simple for my students. I thought there was a good introduction by Prof about planetary health education, but see, my students are from B40. Making it very plain to them is that we are just saving the earth. That's it. What are we learning is we're going to save the earth. We're going to save our planet. See, that is a theme to make them understand. And number two, what is sustainable development goals? In order to save the planets, hey, guess what? We have the 17 things that PBB has actually have rolled out. You know what? Let's choose and let's see how we can do to save our planet. Make it as simple for them as they can understand. Okay, so we're going to save the planet. And one of the things to do is that let's save our ocean first. See, once you get that into their minds, that's the second thing. First, relationship. Number two, let them buy the idea and they will understand why is this important for me to learn in the school. And third is the execution. And the execution is the most beautiful part, because students will tell you things such as, this lesson was amazing, but what was more amazing was that today I went back and I kind of like told my parents about, we need to buy a set of straws which is not made of plastic. Example. See, that is the execution part that really brings the joy, because that's what application takes. So it's all about the only variable. I remember I had this conversation with Sam once, and he told me is that, some teachers, you can throw to them anything, any syllabus. But the end of the day, the variable that is very important is the teacher herself or himself, because how are you, whatever syllabus is being thrown to you, but how are you making sure what is important is being extracted out and being passed on to the kids? So there is a power that every teacher has, but it comes back. Are they willing to take that measure? Are you willing to stay in the status quo and remain what the schools or whatever the system is telling you to do? Or you go beyond thinking about your kids first, what they really need to prepare. And, so I feel, I don't know whether I've answered, but I felt that was me answering a few of the question. And this is what I've been doing in the classroom with my kids. And it's easy for me to share, because you're doing it with your kids every day in the classroom.
Thank you, Stephen. So just to add on, I feel like based on what you've just said, one of your biggest duties is to basically make these complex ideas seem simple enough for them to understand. Like you said, for example, when you put it as saving the earth, and then doing activities based on that, I guess that's what makes it easier for them to understand. Especially if you're teaching young kids, and then if you tell them about, or if you talk to them about the sustainable development goals, for example, now they seem like big words and it may be a bit confusing to them. So one of your jobs is to basically translate these things into bite-sized information for them.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say so? Right.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. Yes, exactly.
Thank you. All right. We have a few questions in the chat box. The next one is from Mr. Loy Rego. His question is, what are the elements of planetary health education? How is it to be linked to other issues and goals on sustainable development? Dr. Hannah, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm looking because we're actually in the same room. Okay, so I dropped a link.
Right.
Okay, I dropped a link in the chat earlier, which actually links to the webpage on the Planetary Health Education Framework, which was actually developed by the Planetary Health Alliance. But please note that framework was actually developed by academics. So it is still very, let's say, wordy, and it's very philosophical. So if you actually look, the main gist of it is actually the relationship of humans with nature. So that is the main element in the educational framework that we actually need to focus on. And then there's also the element of social justice, movement building. So these are the important parts that we need to focus on. So how do we link to the issues and goals on sustainable development? So in a general sense, the Sustainable Development Goals and the Planetary Health Education Framework have the same goals, but the SDGs, they focus more on developing. But when you talk about the planetary health movement, it's also about fixing the previous mistakes that have been done by maybe the prior generations. So an important part of planetary health is actually movement building. So we actually need to engage the community, give agency back to the people actually involved on the ground. So that is a huge part of planetary health. So that is one of the differences between the two. And other than that, I think we can just continue this conversation later on, because there's still a lot to talk about when we come to education in a planetary health sense, because it's a very broad field. So if there's anything else that you need clarification on, you can just ask.
And Andrew, can I add something to that? And hello, Roy. Loy, nice to see you on the call. Loy and I are good friends. We know each other a long time. So I think what is important is for us to realize that in terms of educating planetary health and the planetary health approach itself, it really requires us to rethink and reorient everything we do differently. Right? It's about how we consume, how we have agricultural practices, how do we have energy, how do we look at our relationship between ourselves and the environment and the planet, how do we communicate science, and most importantly, the narrative, right? What is the story we tell ourselves about what it means to lead a good life? And I think that's the essence of planetary health. Now, in terms of the education itself, obviously, there are different components to planetary health education, from, pandemics and the relationship with the environment and biodiversity, food systems, healthy cities, energy, economics, everything is very, very broad. What we are doing now is we are piloting, as Hannah is saying, and really it's an exciting journey. But our ambition is to make this open source so that, people can take it. I noticed someone from Egypt is on the call, and that, you can take it when it's ready and tweak it and apply it to your context. So, knowledge should be shared. And I think that if each of us do our part, whether at primary, secondary, or tertiary level, and also very importantly, educating government and the private sector. So that means we have to find the links not only with sustainable development goals, but also with ESG, the discussions around the business sector, around environment sustainability and good governance. And so I think, that those are the opportunities.
Thank you, Tan Sri, for adding your thoughts as well. Now moving on. Mr. Loy, would you like to add anything to the discussion?
Yeah, I don't really want to add. I want to thank Jamila for her insights. And I think the only point not additional, but really emphatic point I will make is that we need to simplify our lifestyles. So part of planetary health is simplification and living a life which still achieves results, but does not over-consume the resources that are there in the planet. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you for that, for adding that. So moving on to some other questions in the chat, I'd also like to highlight something that was said by, hold on here, Prof. Mona. We have Prof. Mona here. Prof. Mona has said that incorporating the new syllabus in your curriculum was kind of challenging. And maybe Prof. Mona, would you like to share a little bit on that, on the challenges that you have faced in talking about planetary health, environmental health in your teachings?
Yes, thank you, Andrew, so much. And I'm really happy to be having this opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts and reflections on applying planetary health in education. And by the way, I was also really pleased to work with Dr. Omnia Al-Omrani, and together we were able to give a forum on that topic and also include young voices with us in Qasr Al-Aini School of Medicine, Cairo University. So first of all, to give a briefing about the work I'm doing, I'm actually specialized in parasitic infectious diseases, but I also have passion in education, training as a researcher, as a scientist. And I'm speaking from my experience working around 6 years in that field of narrative medicine and planetary health. The reason why I say that incorporating new disciplines in the core curriculum is kind of challenging because we faced a huge curriculum reform across all major universities across Egypt. It was like 5 years ago, and I was in that panel of the change. It was really difficult to move from discipline-based to modular system. And so even when you think like a lot of things are nowadays beginning to focus on sustainable development goals and all these current issues, we need not to stuck ourselves in the core curriculum, as far as it's very difficult to track a lot of a new mindset that can really make great effort in that. So perhaps the situation is different in other countries. I'm just like giving my experience working in the field of education. Nevertheless, it was really a great opportunity to implement my, as I say, my own customized curriculum that really fits into the context of what the Egyptians really need by implementing planetary health in a way that's really speaking to the health challenges, non-communicable diseases, all these determinants of health, and how we can live in this new geological era of the Anthropocene. The way how I implemented this is to focus more on seeing the bigger picture, how our immune health is really affected with the environmental and the exposome science, as we may say, the bio-psychosocial aspects and all these interactions. So I don't want to really take a lot of time, but actually it's really fascinating to work with young people and try to have all these innovative ideas to get them more into the responsibility and promoting these scientific discussions around imagining how we can live in a better future. So I have some links, but I wonder if it would be okay to share on the chat, or perhaps even I can leave my email or any contact so that I can give more of a background about the work I'm doing, and also about the Mentoring Research Network, which is a collaborative network across Africa. And we currently have 35 social environmental health scientists across 20 institutions in Africa, and we are aiming at implementing planetary health, One Health, Eco Health, Climate and Health, and also the indigenous knowledge system, which are very important to create a new narrative and new accessible approaches to the root causes of the Anthropocene, and also to leverage the capacity building in research writing, and to make actionable recommendations for public health and for local communities. And also we have some papers published in this regards. So I will stop here, and perhaps we can share more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Mona, for your sharing. Okay, moving on, we have another question here for Stephen in the chat box. So the question is, there have been many instances where young people actually want to change their attitude and behavior towards issues such as climate change, for example, but they have hindrance from adults, sort of asking them questions like, what difference will your action make, for example. So how do you as an educator, try to instill these things or try to overcome these challenges? Perhaps when you sort of teach your students to practice what they learn at home, what feedback do you get from your students? Are they accepted by their parents? Do they get any form of hindrances and so on?
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I mean, I was seeing the question as well. I think the main point is that when people ask them what difference will your action make, and number two, how do you ensure your students follow your teachings and ideas? Okay, number one is that the fact that whatever that we're doing is in a school, in a very small compound, and when you compare with this whole country, for example, it's a very small space. But the thing is that I always tell them that, you have to start somewhere. So whatever that you're doing, because whatever that we teach them, whatever they apply in the classroom, which is in their daily life, that impact that they see will be their greatest testimony. For an example, okay, I just want to use an example based on the slides that I was using. Okay, for an example about B, for an example, we're learning about B. So what is the impact when people say, what difference are you going to make? The thing is, it's not about what difference can I make in this one moment to save bees. No. I'm going to be thinking bigger. I'm going to work with NGOs. I'm going to work with people with power and all that. I'm going to make a change that can really save the bees. See, that is the idea that we are selling to them. It's not about working in isolation, and that is one thing. And the second thing is that I see the question is about how do they follow your teaching. See, the thing is that I never do it as a teaching, something that you must take it. It's all about making into a value or making into an habit. See, when you teach kids values and you make it part of their habits, you see, you can't change habit. You see, when you keep on teaching kids about, hey, this is a responsibility as what we're supposed to do for the earth and all that. So when it becomes habitual, it's not something that they need to remind, because they're doing it already as a lifestyle. So that is how we approach. It's not about a teaching. It's not about an idea. It's about making it, what do you call this, intentional decision. You got to teach your kids to make intentional decision. And the best way is that it has to be a lifestyle. It has to be a habit, because you're not going to run away from habits and lifestyle. So that is the key. It's not about putting your teachings into whatever, and that's the reason when I mentioned earlier, relationships are important. When those things are built, what you're guiding them, what you're educating them, those things becomes part of their lifestyle, about how they think, about they make decisions. So it's a very big it's like a very big picture, but that's what you're supposed to sell to your kids, to always look beyond. It's not about one person making a difference, about one person striving to make a bigger difference with more people, with a bigger community, number one. And number two, it's about making it a lifestyle, making it a habit, and learning it as a value rather than a teaching.
Right. Thank you, Stephen, for your sharing. Prof. Elil, yes, I see your hands are up.
Yeah, thanks. No, I've got something to just add on to what Mona just said. Mona, thanks a lot. And I really appreciate the challenges you face in trying to introduce planetary health into existing medical school curricula. It's quite challenging, because what happens is most countries have their own qualifications authorities, which have got a set of modules that they see needs to be within any medical school curricula. We in some way maybe as a university, the university has got a very, is committed to planetary health. I mean, you see from the Center for Planetary Health and planetary health being introduced and mainstreamed in graduate school education as well. So my role currently here is to try and establish a new master's program in public health. And in doing so, we'll try as much as possible to incorporate planetary health within the context of what we traditionally have as in Masters of Public Health modules, and also maybe as everybody seems to be saying, sometimes it's better to start small and then build rather than trying to hit people with something big. So we'll probably do an evolution, starting probably with a module, an elective module on planetary health, but also incorporating planetary health aspects within the other modules, the compulsory modules that we do. But hopefully in the future, we're able to say something about it as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Adel. So I think we have time for a few more questions, maybe one or two more. Are there any questions from the floor?
Maybe if I can make a comment, Dr. Mona, we're all big fans of Omnia, so please send our love and salam to her. I think that what you're experiencing is probably what many medical schools are experiencing. I don't know if Leah is on the call, but there are many schools, medical schools in North America and Europe now moving towards trying to introduce planetary health or climate and health into medical curriculum. As a medical doctor myself, I was trained many years ago, but when I ask current medical students, it's still not in the syllabus. They don't talk about climate and health. Even Hannah, I think, who's much younger than me, didn't have that in your medical training, right? So I think we have to keep pushing because one good thing though, and I think it started at Sharm el-Sheikh, where there was a health pavilion by WHO. I understand that this year at COP28, which will be in Dubai, will have a health day. So, so that's going to really put a lot of spotlight on, climate and health, planetary health. So I think we just have to keep pushing and be more visible and, collaborate much more. I think collaboration is going to be very key.
Yes, I truly believe that collaboration and partnership is really very important because we are facing the same challenges, and it's all interconnected with the anthropocentrism, how we see things, and the sustainability also issues. So all we need, like promoting more research also in this area, and making young voices really be heard. And okay, of course, I will tell Dr. Omnia about this meeting, and also I will send her your regards. And I'm a big fan of your work, Dr. Jamila. I really feel very, very proud of you that Sunway Center is one of a kind, and we are so proud of all your hard effort in that. And perhaps we can talk again later, because I see that Africa and the situation in Africa, it really deserves more partnership and further collaboration with this side of the Asian side. So perhaps we can talk later about how we can promote this partnership to next level, because we have also partnered with the Nova Institute for Health at Baltimore, USA. And this Nova network is spearheaded by Professor Susan Prescott. We have a page, the MRN page on their website, the Nova Hub. So we are really benefiting as MRN members from this kind of discussions, because the planetary health is in its nature transdisciplinary, and we need always to enhance multilateral, multi-solving strategies to improve this complex relationship of human health and environmental issues. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamila.
Thank you very much, Mona, and we're very happy to collaborate. I really hope to see all of you at our summit next year.
Right, everyone. Thank you so much for your sharing. Is there one last question before we end? Yes. Ms. Francois, yes, yes.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm joining from Cameroon, and it is morning here. We are getting to 10 a.m. and I'm coming from the MRN space with Dr. Mona, and she has shared most of what we are doing in that space. I just want to bring up is that we've been talking about taking it to schools, the planetary health to schools. I will come with the aspect of implementing it in the community. And sorry, I joined late. I don't know if you already approached that aspect, because I work with a civil society organization that is implementing One Health activities, and which is really just like a planetary health. And so I don't know if you have also activities in that light where you implement planetary health in the communities. How do you do it, and how do you go about changing really this lifestyle of the people and work with them? Thank you.
I think Andrew and Hannah, you can answer that in terms of our MPU, you know, what the aim is, and also our activities with young people.
And I would like to go first.
Okay. So basically, our MPU. Yeah, our MPU is designed in a way to actually ask the students to develop their own projects, and for them to have the skills needed to run those projects by themselves. So in a sense, they actually have ownership over these programs, and then all the faculty have to do is actually support them and maybe help when there are group dynamics that don't exactly match, because at the moment the program is compulsory and we actually assign the groups randomly. So sometimes there are mismatch when it comes to group dynamics, and also because we have a mixture of students from different schools and different courses, so their backgrounds are vastly different. So tutors, in that sense, they help facilitate the discussions and sort of help direct those discussions to a project that is manageable and feasible within that very short time period. And then we don't really focus on the deliverable itself, because we want the students to focus more on the experience of working in teams and actually coming up with their own projects, because it's just a sort of launching point for them. So they don't really have to have very bombastic aims or bombastic results. So as long as they can say that we have done this within these 4 weeks, we are very proud of it. This is what we can show. We may plan to continue this. It doesn't mean that they have to stop after that 4 weeks. They can continue with whatever they're doing. But some of them, they run social media campaigns, they do fundraising, and then they actually go and help out the community. So some of our students have actually went on and started networking with other organizations or bodies. And from there, they actually developed their own networks outside of the university. So that is something that we actually want to encourage. So is there anything else you need to cover? I think that's mostly what we are focusing on for our community service for planetary health. So it doesn't necessarily have to be very planetary health focused, as long as they actually come up with a project that is helpful to the community. So as long as that element is there, then we are very happy with the results, and that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Hannah, for sharing. And just to add on to what you've said, so being the youth engagement officer here, so I think one of my roles here is to basically facilitate groups of young people, sharing our knowledge with them, with their own work, with their works on tackling the climate change, with their works on urban development and so on. And for someone like me, working together with Stephen, for example, like I would love, to have, your kids come over to our campus, or, we go to your school and we do a campaign together, and hopefully that we can get a group of, young people, diverse age groups coming together for one goal. So that's definitely something that I'm looking into. And again, hopefully we can have a way of working together in the months to come. Thank you. Okay, so dear participants, now that we have come to the end of our session, I would like to thank the speakers and the participants for your time and involvement in this town hall. Now, we have been busy planning our youth engagement activities for the coming months, so please do follow us here on our socials for more information. I'll also be getting in touch with all of you personally to share updates on the work that we do, our upcoming. Now, before we end, I would like everyone to turn on your webcams so that we can have a photo op session. Can you please do that? Thank you. We'd love to see your lovely faces, everyone. Okay, a few more, please. All right, just waiting for a couple more. Okay, all right. Okay, I'll be taking a screenshot in 3, 2, 1. Okay, one more. Freestyle now. 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Now, right before everyone goes, I would like to kindly ask all of you to really help us in the center to improve on our future work, future programs. So can you do so? And thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. We really appreciate you in this town hall, and we hope to see you in our future events. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care, everyone.